Good afternoon, and welcome to the webinar, Building a Next Level Digital Small Business Strategy. This webinar will cover actionable insights, proven tactics, and expert advice to help community financial institutions more effectively support small business accounts. Join us as we share strategies and digital capabilities to service and support one of the most profitable and digitally underserved markets in community financial institutions. We thank you for joining us. I'm Catherine Tracy, a Director of Business Development here at Bank Director. Today's webinar is brought to you by both Finex Tech and ebankIT. Launched in 2014, Finex Tech is a specialized resource connecting a highly influential audience of U.S. financial institutions leaders with technology partners at the forefront of innovation. Finex Tech makes it easier for financial institutions and technology companies to work together through its exclusive in-person events, editorial content, and online Finex Tech Connect platform. ebankIT is a digital banking platform provider to community financial institutions, offering customizable, highly personalized, omni-channel solutions to retail, SMB, and large-scale commercial accounts. A strength lies in their ability to support business accounts with advanced self-service digital banking tools, ranging from managing payments, establishing multi-layer controls, financial insights, and multi-entity banking. Before we get started, let me share a few things to keep in mind. First off, don't worry, we cannot hear you. You have joined this webinar in listen-only mode. If you have questions for our speaker, please note them by clicking the Q&A button found on the right side of your screen. You can do this at any time during the presentation. Once our presenter has finished with their talking points, we'll have a Q&A period where the questions will be addressed. There is no need to take detailed notes as the presentation will be shared with all attendees within 24 hours via email. It will also be available on finextech.com. If you have any technical issues, you may also note those using the Q&A button on the right-hand side of your screen. Our team will email you a solution via the email address that you have registered with, and we'll do our best to take care of it. Finally, the opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the individual speaker only. On that note, let me share a little bit more about our speaker today. Paul Provenzano is the Vice President of Market Development at ebankIT. Paul is an accomplished financial services executive with over 25 years of experience in the fintech industry, having worked with organizations ranging from startups to Fortune 250 companies. He has a track record of driving growth and innovation in digital banking, digital payments, and other innovative technologies in the financial market. He is leading the U.S. business of innovative and well-established 11-year-old Portuguese-based digital banking software provider, ebankIT. His passion is working with financial institutions to design and implement digital transformation technologies and strategies that create business impact and drive customer engagement. So with that, Paul, please take it away.
Thank you, Catherine. Really appreciate that, and thank Bank Director for hosting this webinar today. And also, I want to thank everybody that's tuning in and participating of staying away from your busy schedule. So really excited to share some perspectives with you today on what it takes to create a next level small business digital strategy. I really tried to structure this conversation in 4 parts today. So the first 2 parts, we're going to just talk briefly about challenges that are being faced in the banking industry today around the small business market, the SMB market. I want to talk a little bit about current small business product positioning, but then really launch into kind of the nuts and bolts, the meat of the discussion today, and that is some of the fundamental principles of really creating a differentiated digital small business strategy and approach. And then, we'll have a final conclusion. Over the last 6 to 12 months, it's really been interesting for us. A lot more of our conversations with community banks have geared a lot more toward small business, digital small business strategies, conversations around how do we acquire small business accounts, retain the current clients that we have. And so as we've been really digging into, what it takes to establish, build, and deploy a strong small business strategy, we've also come across some, pretty compelling and quite honestly, some concerning market insights around the risk that community banks are facing today relative to the small business account growth and retention. And so, when we see 4 or 3 different research firms come out with market statistics that really all at the end of the day tell the same story, kind of really begs the question, well, what's behind this? And, why is it that small businesses are less compelled to partner with their community banks or their primary bank, maybe that they have their personal relationship with? And so it really, caused us to take a much deeper look, both from a research standpoint and then from a practical standpoint. So from a research standpoint, we found it was very interesting, the McKinsey study that really laid out what the primary criteria is that SMBs are looking for when it comes to those primary criteria from their community bank. And I don't think anybody will question or doubt the importance relationship plays. Certainly one of the greatest strengths I think community banks have in the market is the relationship aspect. But I think what becomes surprising after that is the next 2 most compelling or significant criteria that small businesses are looking for is around technology and technology orientation and services that a community bank can provide that help elevate their business, help elevate their efficiency, and provide an extension of what they're already doing. And so this was interesting as we took this data, then we started to do just some independent kind of anecdotal research on our own, market analysis maybe is a better word. And as we started looking at community financial institutions across the country, just general websites, what was interesting is this is the standard positioning that we start to see when it comes around small business account positioning. And so this is something that we just drafted. But if you were to go across, any number of financial institutions or community banks across the country, this might be a typical web page of outlining what the small business offering might look like. And so it really started to tell a story for us on one hand, what community banks or what small businesses are looking for, the primary criteria from their community bank. But then on the other side, we start to see what the actual positioning is of those small business accounts. And if we take it another layer deeper, or you go deeper onto a potential website, we start to see more of the details of how a small business account is positioned. And so you'll see here very transaction orientation, which makes sense. Certainly, community banks are in the business of facilitating a lot of transactions on behalf of their small business clients. But the aha for us, as we really started to look more closely at this, is there is a gap between what a small business needs are and what traditional financial institution offering is in the market. And that's really what compelled us to rethink of what a next level digital small business strategy really should look like and should really entail. And so that's kind of the core of what's driving our story today, and that we're really excited to share with you. And so when we think about developing a really strong, compelling, next level digital small business strategy, there's really 3 elements that we think are most critical or most important to bring together. And so the first is really understanding who are your business clients. And there's a number of different ways to do and go through a segmentation exercise. We've seen some good examples on various community bank websites of particular business segment focus. But I think at the core of it, what we're encouraging and what we believe is really important is to begin to identify and begin to group and begin to segment those types of organizations that the community bank is most effective in servicing and supporting. And so there's any number of different methods, mechanisms, and ways in which to segment This is just a quick example of two, one by an industry focus, highlighting 4 different industries as an example. There's another by a business structure, and there's probably, another dozen or so different types of segmentation that can be facilitated. I think at the core of it, this starts with once you define the business segmentation or persona of the businesses that you serve, then you can start to identify more effectively what the needs and the financial service offering should be. And so we wanted to take this a step further and give some really practical examples of what a segmentation strategy would look like in real life. And so, here's an example of Mira and her interior design company. It's important to really understand what Mira's business dynamics are. And so you could replace Mira with, any entrepreneur, a single person business, most likely, and you'll have a lot of these same business dynamics. But what's important is to understand how the business dynamics translate into particular banking requirements. And so when you look at what Mira's business is, a one-person operation, wearing all the hats of a traditional business, getting paid in large sums, having large expenses, and having to take on the responsibility of paying invoices, there's a lot of administration that goes with that. And so what are banking requirements that Mira may look to her bank to provide to help streamline her business, to help her become more efficient? And so we start to see, beyond just the traditional transaction-oriented services, we start to see more business-related services, cash flow monitoring, as an example, some level of invoicing tools, perhaps integration into accounting or QuickBooks, as an example. And so this is where the segmentation of a business, what their particular dynamics are, and what requirements or banking requirements may translate as a result. And so I want to just take one more example that goes down the spectrum a little bit further. And so here we have precision engineering, a bigger, more organized and structured company, a 20-person organization with a domestic and international presence. They've got people that wear multiple hats across departments. They are doing large sums of money movement back and forth, often traveling. And so a lot of dynamics here leverage technology as much as they can. And so how does that translate into potential banking requirements that this type of an organization maybe or requires necessary? And so access to credit perhaps is something that is crucial. Cash flow monitoring, but now forecasting could be a very important feature or capability that they're looking for. They may have people within the organization that have assigned banking rules, approvals. They may have some sophisticated systems that they're working with in the way of accounting and payroll. So the banking requirements are very different for precision engineering than they are for Mira. And we could continue going on and on with a number of different business personas. But the idea is, as we start to think about business segments and we start to think about the banking requirements that might be necessary or required, it then begins to translate into, all right, well then what are some of the technology considerations that we should be thinking about? What are some of the technology considerations that these companies may find additional value in? Or what are some of the technology considerations that bring more value? Or what are some of the technology considerations that create stickiness in the relationship between the community bank and the particular business? And so I've tried to lay out 4 different very broad technology considerations as part of the strategy to think about. There's probably we could double it, but for purposes of our conversation today, I wanted to try and create a little bit of a succinct list of those strategy items. So The first one is really thinking about the user experience in general. And this is an area that really is often overlooked, an opportunity to really bring value right up front when a small business logs into a system, as an example. And so, some examples of really taking the user experience to the next level are providing cash flow graphs, as an example. Cash flow dashboards that give the small business owner at a glimpse, at an account level, how that particular account is trending, good, bad, or otherwise. And so when you think about user experience, it's at a moment a small business owner can log in without having to look at balances or anything like that. They can see how their cash flow is trending. There's also some really creative user experience opportunities too. When you think about a situation where you have a small business owner, maybe they have two or three businesses, a painting business and a landscaping business. They want to keep the expenses and the revenue separate. They're different accounts within the bank, but they want to have access to them. And so the ability to, through a single login, as an example, give a business owner access to multiple business accounts. And then, even in addition to that, you give them access to a personal account. And so now, through a relationship and through a very easy user access, that individual now has more and the opportunity to have more of their account relationships with the financial institution, because now they can do it through a single experience. That experience translates across multiple devices, whether it's a PC or a mobile device on an app. That centralized, that consolidated user experience becomes very important for the small business owner. And then the last point that I would make here is, as we think out, looking out, what are the opportunities from a innovation standpoint? This is a really good opportunity. This will be an opportunity of evolution around AI, as an example. And so we see the opportunity to do some predictive modeling based on historical performance, historical invoicing, historical expenses, to be able to layer on top of an actual cash flow graph what predictive forecasting might look like. And so this is where the predictive side of AI, we believe, will be some value add. So, the first technology consideration when you think about delivering more value, enhancing that experience for your small business owners, is really around that comprehensive user experience. The second technology consideration is more around integration, optimization of third-party systems. And so, one area that we see and believe is a tremendous growth opportunity is the ability, through an open API platform, to integrate into third-party systems, whether they're accounting systems, invoicing systems, perhaps even some payroll systems, different HR systems. But what we see, the vision that we have for a digital platform for a community bank, is that the community bank becomes the digital front door to a whole variety of additional business services for that small business. And so I really think about the stickiness that creates if your small business clients are coming through you to access, any variety of other systems that they have. Some may be through, a very tight API-oriented integration. Others may be more of a link into a system. But the fundamental is that it enables the financial institution to be front and center, top of mind for your small business owners to access a variety of different systems that they may be using. In addition to that, the open API enables a whole variety of different payment methods to be enabled. And so if we think back to the personas that we talked about that are referenced with Mira and then Precision Engineering, each of those organizations have different money movement requirements. And the ability to integrate a multitude of payment systems, payment rails into a platform seamlessly but then also determining which type of payment methods are enabled by a segment creates a very strong proposition in the market. And so it helps create strong controls for the bank so that, Mira may not have been able to facilitate international wire, but precision engineering based on their business segment, those functions and capabilities have been enabled. And so that's where the personas become important. And that's where an open system becomes important, because now we can integrate payment systems and a variety of other services that may be applicable to the different business segments or personas that we enable. The third technology consideration is really as important as the user experience, and that is the back office or the operational side. And so when you think about and you look at how a business can most efficiently monitor, manage the different workflows and the different aspects of their organization, especially when it comes to money movement, you want to ensure that there are multi-layer, multi-entitlement capabilities so that a small business can set up controls and workflows and automation based on what is important to them. And so you may have a situation where a business wants to set rules and controls at a transaction type. You may have another organization that wants to set rules and controls around transaction limits. And you may have another business that wants to set rules and controls on a combination of both of that. And so this is where technology really enables and creates efficiency for a business so that they can now monitor, manage, create efficiency, and have an audit trail of those payments and money movement as they're happening within the system, as well as putting controls on who is able to facilitate any type of money movement. And so a really strong technology consideration as a small business, a next level small business strategy is built out is what are those controls and what are those capabilities behind the scenes that enable a company to more effectively manage the financial side of their business. And then last but not least, certainly, we saw on that research that McKinsey did that first and foremost in the relationship is the relationship with between the small business and the bank. And so, there's a perception that technology can get in the way of building a relationship. We believe quite the opposite. The technology leveraged, used, and implemented the right way can actually help establish, maintain, and build the relationship quite productively. And so there's a couple of examples that I'd like to give around how technology can help build, maintain, and strengthen a relationship. And so the first is, think about that new business onboarding process. Typically looks like something where a small business owner comes into the bank. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of identification, a lot of forms that need to be signed, which typically translates into that small business owner going home, scanning documents, emailing back and forth, those documents getting tracked and logged somewhere within the bank. That first impression of how a small business starts their relationship with the bank establishes what that relationship could look like on a go forward. And so we believe from the beginning there's an opportunity for community banks to establish a very seamless and a very elegant self-service onboarding process where documents are shared through the online banking, the digital banking portal. There's workflows on the background within the bank where those documents and the information can be verified, validated, approved. And so now what happens is the elimination of emailing back and forth. And now you have a very seamless, very clean, process tracked workflow so that the small business owner can also see where they are in the process, what's missing, what's been submitted, perhaps what needs to be resubmitted. So that first experience can really establish and lay a strong foundation for the future growth of that relationship. A second, I think, really good example is that personal connection in using technology to establish or transition to that personal connection. And so if you think about, it's not uncommon for a business owner, an accountant, somebody to make a call into the bank when they're in the system. They're making a payment, initiating the payment, researching, and a question comes up, which typically may prompt a phone call. Within the system, why not prompt somebody, send a message right to my personal banker, my relationship manager, the team that supports me, initiate a chat immediately, which could very quickly transition into a video call, which could transition into a screen sharing session to really see what's happening. And so we see that technology as an opportunity to really extend that relationship in real time when a small business owner or an administrator has a question, needs help, or needs support. So those are really the four fundamental frameworks of a technology strategy that we would really encourage around the user experience, around the openness and the APIs, certainly as it relates to the customer support aspect of it. And then, as you think about how you build out the platform, bringing all these technologies together. And so once the technology aspect, you've got your technology strategy buttoned down, you've done your market segmentation, you understand what the business needs and the requirements are for the different business segments and how you want to break those out. Now we really start to get into, and this is the development of that next level small business digital strategy. And so you start to align target market needs with what those account features and benefits are going to be, creating the accessibility and the convenience. And so now the business needs with technology and the financial capabilities are aligned. And so now what you have, if you remember back in the beginning of the slides, I had a couple of slides that gave a preview of how community banks today are typically marketing and product positioning small business accounts, transactional oriented. Now, this is an example of what you could have. And so this is a mock-up, illustrative purposes only. But what you see here is an example of one way in which you start to package the small business strategy with the business needs of the different segments. And so for illustrative purposes here, we have solopreneurs, individual businesses. We created a business plus, call that the precision engineering group, and then maybe an enterprise class, multinational, international type company. But you start to categorize the capabilities and the business services, the technology behind the scenes that is going to help this small business or this business account be more efficient. And so, again, these are examples of what you can enable, how you might do some differentiation between the different segments, some positioning, again, for illustrative purposes. But the focus is on solving business objectives, business needs. It's less on delivering on a transactional based services. They're very much part of the overall approach, but it's not the core or the lead of the individual capabilities. And so this is where we feel what we see and believe is at the core of really creating a next level digital small business strategy is a repackaging of the existing products and services, but putting technology up front and articulating and communicating to the businesses what your proposition is to them and how you can bring more value and what the value proposition might be in delivering more advanced digital capabilities. So my concluding slide really is around the idea of leveraging market insights, taking your market segmentation that you've done, driving technology requirements based on the market segmentation, driving technology requirements based on what the businesses need, and then creating a compelling small business product positioning strategy that truly, at the end of the day, the technology is what enables a very digitally differentiated product in the market. So we have ebankIT's authored a report, Digital Dynamics in Corporate Banking for 2025. In the next 24 hours, and I think Catherine alluded to it, there'll be a follow-up email, and there will be a link to this report that we certainly invite you to download. Much more detail on a variety of different topics around creating a very dynamic corporate banking program through the digital channel. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Catherine. I'm so grateful again for everybody joining the call today. And Catherine, at this time, I'm happy to take any questions that may have come up from the audience.
All right, great. Thank you, Paul, for that. We actually
You're
have had
welcome.
a few questions come through. So just a reminder to the audience, if you have some questions, feel free to submit those while Paul is answering the first couple ones that have come through. So Paul, where should a bank even start on this journey? Where do they begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's three different paths that a community bank can look at to start assessing. So the first I would say is, just beginning that business segmentation exercise if you haven't done that. And, you could argue that there's probably a different business segment for every SIC code. But, I think fundamentally it's important to identify, what is that sweet spot, the communities that the bank serves, where are they most effective? And so the first I would say is starting with that, the business segmentation strategy. The second I would say is to begin a technology inventory. And so, what opportunities do you have in your current technology stack to begin promoting? And then what are the gaps? And, there's, oftentimes you don't know what you don't know. And so it's a matter of discussions like these and, other conversations, but really understanding where those technology gaps may be. And then I think the third I would say is, shopping the competition a little bit and just looking at financial institutions in your markets that you serve and how are they positioning their business accounts. I think you'll see a lot of similarities from what we've talked about today.
Thank you very much. We have a couple more, Paul. So what are the biggest technological challenges community banks face when trying to implement digital solutions for small businesses? And how can they overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I mean that's something that we encounter quite a bit. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One, I think certainly the openness of systems can be a enabler or a restrictor. And so, that's, I think, kind of top of mind is how open are the current systems that, community bank may have today. And what I mean by that is, how easy it is to connect to other third party systems. There is a lot of very innovative solutions that are being developed and coming to market, but there's a reliance on connectivity and integration into kind of a primary digital banking system. So openness is one technological challenge that I see. I think another is just the depth of a system. And so what I mean by that is the ability of a digital system to facilitate, especially related to small business, multi-level entitlements, the multi-level approvals, the ability to facilitate access to multiple accounts under a single login. So, I would describe the depth of the system as a technological challenge. And then the third, more and more, is the self-service onboarding. Through COVID on the consumer side, onboarding just took off from a consumer standpoint. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for community banks to really get good and implement a nice, seamless, very elegant business self-service onboarding process. And so, I would say that those are, some of the primary obstacles that come to mind for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. One more here, and this is on future technology trends. So, what future technology trends should community banks consider when contemplating their SMB tech strategy?
Yeah, and I think this is really important as you start to map out the business requirements. But I think there's going to be a strong or a higher integration between digital platforms and invoicing systems, accounting systems, expense management systems. And so, we really feel like there's going to be a great opportunity for the community bank to be that, as I described, that digital front door, point of access to, a variety of different business services. So that's something that I would certainly encourage keeping on the radar. I think we'll see more in the way of automation around, invoice, accounts payable. So when invoices come in, when those payments are due, the automation of payments related to that. Um, Certainly, I think, AI will have a role in certain areas. And as I mentioned, I think, one area that, we're looking forward to and we think there's a great opportunity to support businesses is around that cash flow forecasting, some predictive modeling based on past invoicing, past cash flows, past expenses. So those are a few different trends that for me come top of mind for community banks to be thinking about to really deliver that next level digital experience to their business owners.
All right. I think that's it for questions. So, Paul, with that, I will close us out. Um, as a reminder to all of our listeners and our audience, you will receive the recorded version of this webinar within the next 24 hours via email, which will also include a link to download ebankIT's latest report that Paul referenced just a few slides ago. So we will also post this webinar on finextech.com, so you can reference it there as well. Thank you so much to Paul and ebankIT for co-hosting today's webinar, and thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.